Welcome to The Whole Steward, the holistic approach to wealth from a Christian worldview. I'm your host, Andrew Stanton, and I'm glad you've joined. The media has become incredibly biased, and I've noticed many examples of this in recent days. I've wanted to do this episode for a while. We're going to talk about what is it that makes the media biased. Everyone has an agenda, and what's underlying that agenda is what gets covered. So, whether it's conservative or liberal, we'll look at that today on The Whole Steward. This is episode number 64. I'm glad you've joined. As you've noticed, I have been MIA for quite a while now, multiple months. You notice my background is different. My audio is different. You're going to hear noises in the background because I'm sitting outside today. It is a very beautiful day in this southern sunny California city that I live in. We moved recently, and as you can see, we moved to the country. I don't have the studio set up yet or even a place to record, and I've been very busy. We've been doing many different things on the home front, including moving to this new property, lots of improvements to the property, as well as having our newest little baby, Nehemiah, and something else, and I'm forgetting what it is. Oh yes, starting a new role at my work. I have been given more responsibility. I manage a team now, and there's a lot of extra learning that goes along with that. And by learning, I mean just a little bit of extra pressure on myself to do well and to succeed in the new role. So building a team is something new to me, and I've been enjoying that as well as being challenged by it. So all those things are reasons why I've just had The Whole Steward on hold for a little while, but I've really wanted to do this episode for a long time. I've not stopped watching everything going on. We're about a week out from a very important election, and it seems like the stakes could never be higher or have never been higher, at least in my lifetime. I know a lot of people say, well, it's a lot of hyperbole where people are saying, oh, this is the most important election of our life. Well, this is an amazing piece of history that we've been living through that's been unfolding from, a president who then was not president and is now running for president again, being Donald Trump, to Joe Biden running for president and then being stopped from running for president, depending on how you look at it. He was probably forced out, and we'll talk about that today. And then a presidential candidate being attempted people attempting to take his life, to shoot him, really. And it's just mind-boggling, everything that's going on. The bias is on display for everybody, and everybody has it in high gear right now to push their agenda. So, again, I've wanted to do this episode for a long time. It'll be shorter today. I hope you can hear me okay and the background noise isn't too distracting. You might hear kids in the background, goats in the background. We've been learning how to take care of goats, as well as other things. The birds are chirping. It's a beautiful morning. Anyways, thank you for joining me. Let's jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about in terms of media bias is, and I'm going to go back in history here. Now, it's not everything. This is just a sampling. This is just a couple of highlights that I thought of to make the point about how biased the media is. Now, like him or hate him, there's a lot of mixed feelings about Trump, even on the Republican side or the conservative side. There is a lot of people will say, they don't like him. Others will say there's no possible way we could do without him. And I think I definitely fall into the camp of the latter, just because of everything that has been being proved out. And I'll jump into that. But I want to show you the going back in history, the Trump assassination attempt. Okay, that was on July 13th, the first time. Right? I know that there was a second attempt, and who knows how many times people are attempting and failing and getting thwarted as they, before they even get further down the line, before they fire any shots. But it's mind-boggling to me that he was even allowed to be shot at. In fact, it's not that mind-boggling when you think about how many people hate him and what they're doing to him. But the shots were taken while he was on stage in Butler, Pennsylvania, on July 13th. Now, immediately after that, and the focus here is not the details of that. If you are interested in the details, there's lots of really good investigations, citizens investigations. Those are basically the only ones I really trust. And the point here is that you have to use your critical thinking and think for yourself as you weed through all the information. A lot of people, if you only listen to MSNBC, you're going to think Trump's a terrible guy. But we'll jump into that later. So he is shot at on stage. Now, immediately after that, we were moving in that day. We were it was right around the move time. We were here. I was doing things around the property, moving stuff around, and my wife comes out and she goes, "Andrew, Trump's been shot." And I couldn't believe it. I mean, we knew people wanted him dead, right? Convicting him, making him a felon, whatever, wasn't enough. We know a lot of people want him dead, but to hear that somebody actually succeeded in shooting him, and at this point we know nothing about like how bad was he shot, was he injured, was he killed, where was it, when was it, all these different things. We don't know. We didn't know anything. All I know is that she tells me. So immediately what you could do is you could go on to some of the mainstream media, right? And you could look at, well, what happened, right? This just blows my mind. And you've probably heard about this before. But for example, the Washington Post, there's a headline here. July 13th. Trump leaves rally after loud noises erupt. That's the headline. Former President Donald Trump was led off stage after loud noises were heard while he was speaking at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. Excuse me. That's not actually incorrect. But can you see the bias here? I get my news probably from Twitter more often. Why? And people say, well, Twitter could be like a dangerous source because you don't know. It's not vetted. Yeah, it's not vetted, but you can see like the literal videos of what happened and countless videos. So many people had their cell phones out, right? That's the difference between this one and, for example, the Kennedy assassination. Nobody had their cell phones out at the Kennedy assassination. Everybody had them out here. Trump leaves rally after loud noises erupt. How about noises that sound like gunshots? Or Trump is shot on stage? Because it was very evident that he was shot. Other people were injured and even killed. And our hearts and prayers go out to the families. It's a very evil thing that happened. And the headline is, Trump leaves rally after loud noises erupt. You see, this is why it boggles my mind. Like, why would people even believe anything that the media points out? Here's an article from Fox News. Of course, Fox is biased, and they're going to point out the things that they want you to know and not say other things. But the photos, the videos, and the headlines, all mind blowing. The headlines and the articles, the information was just, it was horrendous. Honestly, it was so easy to look at primary source footage, right? Videos, from sources who were there, interviews with sources who were there, and they just totally, mask over it and twist it. You can see the bias. And what they were worried about was him, saying fight with his fist up in the air, and blood running down his face. What's he saying? Fight. He literally just got shot, guys. So anyways, it's, it's quite a thing that a man would devote that much of his life. Basically, he had it all. And this is kind of the history of me coming to appreciate Trump. People say, well, how can you as a Christian support a guy who is basically, a fornicator and just, embedded in a TV production and a lot of not good things. Honestly, let's be honest. His history, his past, his character, like the first time he ran for president, I didn't trust him. I thought he was putting on a big show, just like he always does, right? When he got elected, the policies and the platform that he stood on were aligned with what I wanted. I wanted to see Roe v. Wade overturned, and he appointed justices that did that, right? You see a lot of really good policies, economic and these things. So is Trump perfect? Absolutely not. Is he a Christian? No, he's not. But does he and did he give glory to the Creator for sparing his life on that day? Well, yeah, he did. Kind of like some of the kings of old in the Old Testament gave glory to God when they saw the hand of an almighty, powerful being guiding and directing history, right? The Proverbs say that he guides the heart of a king in his hand. So we know that even though he's not, you're not voting for your pastor, right? You're not voting for a spiritual giant. You're voting for a political leader who's willing to lay his life on the line on a stage, in court, in laying aside his businesses and really putting his family through tremendous challenges to fight for principles that are being lost, are being destroyed. He says all the time, our country's being destroyed. Well, it is, because by definition, a country has borders. And if, you don't have borders, you don't have a country as well. So just I'm appreciating him for who he is and what he's doing.
Hi, this is Gary Pinkerton with Gary's Gulch Podcast. You are listening to The Whole Steward with Andrew Stanton, one of the best researched shows by a man of true passion. Now that you know more, go out and grow more.
Now, the second example I want to give, media bias. That's what we're talking about today, right? Media bias. Do you remember shortly before that, not too long before, Biden, whether he's president or not, he has the title of president. It seems that for a long time he couldn't even remember which way to exit the stage, let alone that he was holding the most powerful position in the world. And Trump would point it out all the time. We would point it out. It was very obvious. Here again, the media is saying, "Oh, he's totally fine. He's totally fine. The doctor said he's totally fine." All you have to do is watch primary sources. This is why people don't trust the media. They're like, "Wow, we lost all credibility." Well, yeah, because there's some things that are very obvious, and we are thinking for ourselves. And that's the encouragement today. Think for yourself. Watch the clips of him shaking hands with the air, or forgetting which way to exit the stage, or stumbling over words on the teleprompter, whatever it may be. I feel bad for him. He does not seem well. And we were saying that. And of course, everybody's like, oh, the doctor, for one, was saying, Biden is, here's a headline from CNBC. Biden is a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male, his doctor says after physical. This is in February of this year. Of course, he's totally healthy. And then, another one from NBC News. Republicans float a quiet conspiracy theory that Biden won't be on the ballot. Yeah. Some of us who are thinking for ourselves are going, he can't even remember which way to exit the stage, let alone, debate in the arena of ideas for the most powerful position in the world, President of the United States. So, this whole thing about conspiracy theories, people talk about them all the time. That's a conspiracy theory. Yeah. Well, you know what? All of life is a conspiracy. Here's the thing. We conspire together to do business, right? We don't go and broadcast every detail all the time. A lot of times we're having meetings, conspiring together in private meetings to do business. There's plenty of examples throughout history of conspiracies against a government, for example. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, for example, was a Christian who conspired against the Nazi government, right, against Hitler. So conspiracy theories are just theories about what the conspiracies might be. We know there are conspiracies. Everybody's conspiring together every day, all the time, to do things, right? We're coming together and doing this. But this has become like a derogatory term for those of us who are actually thinking on our own 2 feet, right? We're thinking for ourselves. And that is a good thing. So it's a good thing to be a conspiracy theorist because you're saying, I wonder what's really actually true here. Who's talking to who? Who's saying what to who? And why? What are their motivations? What are they doing? And, so I actually, if somebody calls me a conspiracy theorist, I take it kind of as a compliment. And I'll be happy to discuss that with anybody who's wondering why. Like, what, why are you saying that? Well, that's why. Of course, Republicans are floating the conspiracy theory that Biden won't be on the ballot. Yeah, I think Vivek Ramaswamy was the first one I heard that, on the debate stage in the primary. And he goes, we all know Biden's not going to be on the ticket. Well, look at the media's coverage of this. You see the bias? It comes out. Now, conservatives could say, yeah, we can mock the left all day long. And, they deserve it in many ways. Abortion is not killing a baby. The only difference between a preborn baby and a baby already born is size, location, and level of development. Nehemiah is 100% dependent on his mom, whether he's on this side of the wall or that side of the wall, in the womb, out of the womb. Doesn't matter what stage of pregnancy, it is size, location, and level of development. Those are the only differences between preborn babies and, what do you want to call them? Postborn babies? Already born babies? Anyways, it's the bias just coming out tremendously. And a lot of it is evil. It's evil lies. We need to do our best to not lie. And sure, I could be wrong about some of these things. Again, these are just theories. Theories can never be proven. They can only be disproven by evidence that shows a hole in the theory. Other than that, man, your theory is as good as mine. The last example, let's rewind. I want to take us back about 3-4 years now. Lest we forget, this is what opened my eyes to all of this stuff. I mean, honestly, I used to watch mainstream media and think, that's if CNN is carrying the story, well, then it must be true. If these mainstream media outlets start carrying the story, otherwise it's just all this, kind of wacky ideas. Like, yeah, maybe, but who knows? Now it's like if the media is carrying the story, I'm pretty sure it's not true. Anyways, it's not that bad. But what I'm saying is, think for yourself. Think with your own mind. Rewinding 3 years, do you remember the pandemic? This is what opened my mind to all these things. they were saying what? Oh, this COVID-19 thing is going to kill us all, and especially if you don't get vaccinated, and things like masks work and stuff like that. Well, there's a lot of evidence and theories that go in both directions. You have to look at the data, and the data very early on. If you don't follow them over, they're doing really good work over at the High Wire, and we were following them very early on in the pandemic. And you were getting, they were coming out, they were leading the mainstream perspective by multiple months because they were looking at primary sources of data. How dangerous is the actual pandemic? How dangerous is the vaccine? How effective is the vaccine? All these questions. How effective are masks? All these things. And, raising children in a big city is very evident when your playground is taped up with caution tape and you're told not to use it because it's dangerous or something. You might die. It makes you pause and think, like, okay, is this really true? And the answer to it was, no, it's not true. Almost everybody I know has caught COVID. I do know some people who did not make it through, and that is very, very sad. But does that mean it's going to kill us all? Biden says here that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Now, this is September 9th of 2021. He says it's caused by the fact that despite America having an unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we still have nearly 80 million Americans who have failed to get the shot. Okay, here's the thing. Primary source, right? President of the United States saying this. Well, where does he get his information? You have to ask all these questions. We are to the point where you can't just listen to somebody, whether they're in the mainstream media or now what is, what they might call alternative media or conservative media, which actually is probably even a little more mainstream, although I understand the liberal media has tremendous power. But this is another example. Where's he getting his information? And then they were coming out and saying, and I remember watching the montages that the vaccine works. If you get vaccinated, the fact is that you will not spread the disease. Well, listen, if you were watching the High Wire, you'd know. Yeah, you could spread the disease. Here's the studies. Here's the data. Here's the primary sources. And, it's interesting because even I caught COVID from vaccinated people. And I know it was COVID because they tested positive. I never once took a COVID test. But this is just an example where there's all this noise and propaganda and bias, and you have to think for yourself. We're at a point where social media and the internet has allowed you to literally bring anything across the page of your screen, and you have to be very careful. I'm very interested in primary sources, and that's why Twitter is a pretty cool place to get information. For example, with the Trump shooting. Oh, Trump falls on stage after, okay, watch the video. No, Trump gets shot on stage. Okay? It's not that hard, but it is hard. It's a lot of work. We have to do a lot of work to think for ourselves. One more example as a bonus, Operation Mockingbird. That's an example of where the CIA funded propaganda in the news media. You think of the news as, well, it's independent. It's just reporting the news. Here's what it is. No. There's a lot of people who care about shaping public opinion through supposed trusted sources, which would be supposed independent media, but you got to go to primary sources. For example, I think one of the reasons Tucker Carlson was kicked out of Fox News was because he wanted to interview Putin, and they wouldn't let him, right? When he finally did, I watched the whole thing, long-form interview, and it's very interesting. If you're fighting with somebody who you don't like what he's doing, you might want to understand what his motivations are, and what a great way then to listen to him talk. for a long time talking. I know it's more complicated than that, but boy, I'll just point out with Trump, whether you like him or hate him, he sits down and does long form interviews constantly. He just sat down on the Joe Rogan podcast, 36 million views in 2 days just on YouTube alone. I don't know all the other platforms he's on. Pat Bet David, Tucker Carlson, all these guys. Hey, let's interview him. Do you think Kamala would sit down for 3 hours with anybody? And when she does, it's honestly embarrassing. So basically, to just wrap this up, I hope you enjoyed. Hope there wasn't too much background noise. I hope you enjoyed just this little thought. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Bias in the media and the need for us to think for ourselves. Again, we're a week out from the election. If you can, vote early. The stakes could not be higher. We need to keep pressing on this. Again, thank you for your patience while I was out and away. I think I will take a much looser format with the whole Steward. Hopefully that works for you. I don't know if it will, but we're going to try it. I, again, don't have the studio set up. I thought, well, let's try it outside, see what happens. And I've got a lot going on, a lot. So the whole Steward is still very important to me, and I always have thoughts on it. So look for more episodes coming in the future. But again, probably a little bit looser form. So thanks for listening. Go out there and vote. And also, most importantly, trust the Lord. He's sovereign. He's still on the throne. We as Christians, we do not need to worry. Our eternal security is secure and already bought and paid for by the blood of Jesus Christ. And as we fight for what's right in the world and what's true, as we think for ourselves and sort through all of this, may God receive all the glory. So, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time on The Whole Steward. Now that you know more, go out and grow more.
All content on The Whole Steward is for informational purposes only and must not be considered personal, professional, tax, or legal advice. Please consult an appropriate professional for individualized advice. Though we do our best to bring you reliable information, we make no guarantee on its accuracy, so you must rely on your own due diligence to draw your own conclusions. The views expressed by guests on the show are their own and may not represent that of the host. Please visit our website for complete terms and conditions.
Thanks for joining us today for the holistic approach to wealth from a Christian worldview. This show is brought to you by thewholesteward.com.